Welcome into SportBet Extra. I am your host, Paul Rami, here every Monday through Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. We've had some difficulties on X. We're going to try and see if we can get it going right now. Been just kind of, one of those things where we've been having too many problems. So let's get it figured out. And then we'll be talking about some college basketball today, some NBA today, probably just a little bit. If you guys can give me like 30 seconds here, I just want to make sure I've got it all done correctly. Doesn't want to show up on here, but hey, whatever. We're trying. We just need to get this thing going. What we will be talking about though too is yesterday, 2-2 day, still up in February, almost 20 units there. So we're still doing pretty well in February. We want to keep that momentum going. We got to keep that going into March, April, just all the way. Keep that trajectory, that path going up. Almost got this thing working here on X. That's one of these things with technology. Still not the best at it, but hey, we've got to do what we've got to do. And there we go. So now we're up. Now we're on X as well as YouTube. So hopefully, anyone can join us live and check it out. We've got NBA betting strategy tomorrow that we'll talk about. College basketball again, like I said today, we're going to talk about that. And we're just going to get right into the show. We enough of this stuff that we're talking about. Let's just get right into it. Okay, so yesterday, let's go ahead and pull up that record like we do for October. There we go. Currently, plus 41.56 units since we started our show back up in October, late October. I think it was 21st was the exact day. So here's where we are currently, plus 41.56 units. In February, I've got to run the numbers on that real quick just to verify where we're at. But February has been a pretty solid month so far. I definitely made up for a little bit of what we did in January. So currently for February, we are up. If my math is correct, which usually it is, but today for some reason I'm struggling with math, struggling with everything. Plus 19.05 units in February alone. The best month that we've had, if you go over to sportbetextra.com, you can see my record there was November. I think it was about 19 units. Right now, February, we're on pace to blow that out of the water. If we can go up another maybe 10 or so units just by the end of the month, then we can really have one of our best months, especially after January was negative. I think we were down about 7 units there for January. Made that back up and some, so let's just continue to climb here for February. Yesterday's plays go 2-2. So an average day yesterday, we lose a little bit to the juice. Missouri +4, that was the free play. That was a nice little, I'd say easy win until the end there. Kind of got a little, nervous, but they had no problem covering that 4, winning outright. Sam Houston State -3.5. Never really had a problem covering that one there. Missouri State just could not get the ball to bounce the right way. -1.5. They end up losing there in overtime, just could not get it done. And UNLV -2, same thing. They just could not get it done there at the stretch. They were down to Colorado State a lot of the game. Tried to come back there at the end, but just couldn't quite make it happen. So we lose that one. Yesterday, we do go 2-2. So, again, February still up 19 units. We're going to look at college basketball today, see if there's some spots that we do like. NBA, I don't know if we're going to touch NBA today yet because we do have a play on our NBA betting strategy for tomorrow. But for college basketball, like I said, we're going to jump into all these or a lot of these mid-major games, which is where you can make your money. So for those of the people who really just want to get into sports betting, want to get in gambling, you don't have to bet the the number the ranked teams playing each other, right? Houston, Arizona playing this weekend. You don't have to bet those games. Those are great games to watch. I'm 100% I watch them, but I'm not going to bet every single one of those games. I'm going to look and dig deep for the ones that the sports books look over. They have them wrong. They've got the wrong pricing on them. Those are where you make your money. It may not be as fun as exciting, but it's nice and exciting whenever you've got that extra money in your pocket. So that's why we looked at a lot of these college basketball games. We just try and find these edges in these mid-major. We go to these random games that we just try and find because that's where you can make your money. NBA, it's a little bit different. That's why we've got that NBA betting strategy running that we've been doing. And then football, that's a whole other animal that we can get into. I'm excited for once MLB gets going again. A lot of off-season moves. Boston looks like they're going to be pretty solid this year, making some moves there. I just kind of keep an eye out on them. I'm trying to think what others there. I was going through all the offseason moves. Of course, you got your Dodgers. But anyway, it's going to be exciting once MLB rolls around. We'll not talk about that right now and take too much time. Let's just get right into college basketball. Games tipping off already. We're not going to get into those. We've got two more coming up at 5:30. Let's just skip right to the 6 o'clock games there. So look at those. Again, a lot of these teams are now where the part where they're playing another team. It's kind of that 1-1. We'll see how they're going to go. Let's look at Longwood Presbyterian, for example. Longwood 14-14, Presbyterian 13-14. Presbyterian slight favorite there, -2.5. They did play Longwood earlier this season, back on January 10th. They lost 77-70. This is a spot. This is where you take Longwood, Presbyterian -2.5. This is a perfect example of two teams, average teams. One's not much better than the other. Presbyterian's got some decent wins on them, some losses as well. Longwood, same thing. Neither is a real threat, I would say. I mean, defensively, Longwood is a bit better than Presbyterian, just forcing turnovers as well. But that's the thing. When you get Presbyterian back home playing Longwood and, back on their court that's familiar to them, I would just side with them here simply for the fact that they lost that first game on the road. Now they're back home, laying a small number, 2.5. That's the one we like. When you start getting to that 4.5, 5.5 on these types of games, that's when you've got to be careful. When you're in that 2.5, 1.5 range, that's good. The 3, like we had to push the other day with Stony Brook -3, that's about as far as you want to push these. Anything more than that, you got to tread lightly. There can be some issues there, but that's what we look for is these 2.5 numbers. So Presbyterian, that may end up being the one that we give out today once we kind of look through the rest of these games. But we're liking Presbyterian -2.5. Another one, let's take a look here, see if these two teams have played, which they have. William & Mary against Campbell. Campbell here played William & Mary on the road. They won 104-96. That game was only about less than 3 weeks ago. Now, William & Mary, slight favorite here, -1.5. A little bit better team record-wise, but are they really that much better? Probably not. Are they good enough to win by that 1.5 point today? I would lean that way. Just looking at what they've done, lost to Elon. Elon's solid. They beat UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington's a good team, 22-4. They're pretty much running through that conference. This would be a spot where we just look at William and Mary and say, okay, it's a bounce back. This is where they start making their shots. Defensively, they'll have a little bit of an edge against Campbell as well. And just looking back at that game that those two played, both shot pretty well. 58% for William and Mary, 54% for Campbell. Campbell just hit more threes, 11 threes, shooting 39% there for Campbell. But looking at that, I mean, fouls are an issue for Campbell. That's something that continues to be a problem. So this year, again, this is one I would just lean William and Mary. Slightly better free throw shooting team. Defense is a little bit better. Again, they move the ball a little bit better with their assist ratio. I would just lean William and Mary here, minus that 1.5 on the road. Looking at some others, a lot of these, like I said, not as exciting. You're not going to have these names that jump out at you. I would stay off of Northeastern Drexel. Those two have played. Northeastern lost against Drexel 83-78. Northeastern's just not a good team. They've lost, it looks like, what is that, 7 in a row they've lost. One of those, of course, being to Drexel. That's when you got to kind of pause and say, is it worth betting this team? Maybe, but I wouldn't put my money on it. It would be a lean. It wouldn't be something that I'm just completely, oh yeah, that's part of what we're looking at. Let's take it. No. We can move on to some others. I think New Haven, have they played Stonehill? They did, and they beat them earlier in the season. That was January 2nd, and now they're playing them again, and they're favored again by 2.5. Stonehill's not a good team. This is one of those, again, I would just skip and wouldn't bother and then move on to the next one. That's a great thing about sports in general. The sports books, they've got to put their numbers out. They've got to put the lines out on every single game. We don't have to bet every single game. We pick and choose the ones that we want to bet, and that's how we make our money. We don't get crazy. We don't start betting, 20 games a night and see what sticks. Excuse me. We bet a few, 3, 4 on your bigger days like Saturday. Yeah, we'll get into more 8, 9, maybe around that range. But days like today, 3, maybe 4 plays, and that's about it. We don't need to really just throw darts and hope something sticks. Just stay off of it. If there's one of those where you just don't feel like it's the right side or it kind of gives you pause, yeah, you just stay off that one. UT Martin, Little Rock. UT Martin already beat Little Rock, 55-52 there. It might be smart because on this one, I wouldn't be on Little Rock here to win. They're not a good team. This is one because of that poor scoring and poor shooting from last game. I may just take an over 136.5. That last game was barely what I think total landed right on like 100 and something, like 105, 107, somewhere around there. I would just take an over on this one, 136.5. Statistically, it's not going to be a defensive game like it was the last time, so I would just lean on an over for UT Martin, Little Rock. Again, looking at some others, we're not going to go through all of them because we're going to have more posted over on sportbetextra.com. Again, if you want those plays, go get the free 7-day trial. At least try it for pretty much the rest of the month. If you like it, great. Then I'm going to have a week package, month package, 3-month package. The site's been updated a little bit. Looks a lot cleaner. Go check it out. Another one we can kind of look at. Look, I like this Lindenwood team on the road against Tennessee State here. They lost against them earlier in the season, 96-86. That was on January 24th. This would be maybe one of those spots where you can even dabble into the money line, plus 140 there for them. That's why I would lean on that one with Lindenwood, just because they're a little bit of a more solid team. Tennessee State, they're not. Yeah, they're solid, but they're not that great either. They're capable of losing a game here, especially against Lindenwood. So I would lean Lindenwood. I think just defensively they're a little bit better, and this is a spot where they end up winning this one. Again, if you like the points plus 4.5, I would go that way. If you want, take a little bit more of a risk, money line would be a nice play there. So looking at that one, that's the way I would lean. Getting into the later games, I'm still, for some reason, I like this Denver team. Not going to be laying a 6.5 number with them there. CS Northridge, UC Santa Barbara. I mean, those two teams are almost even. I mean, just UC Santa Barbara, they're better offensively. They can shoot a little bit better. But defensively, rebounding, CS Northridge has the edge there. So this is, again, one of those where I would look, see, hey, what happened last time these two played? And the last time these two played, CS Northridge, they won 74-65. That was back on January 3rd. UC Santa Barbara there, minus a 5.5. That's right on the cusp or the edge of where I would be. I don't know if we're going to be on that one. I would lean that number. I would prefer it more of a 2.5, 3, maybe 3.5 number. That would be more preferable there. It looks like, man, it was maybe about a 3.5. Now I'm seeing 5.5. So I would be off it unless you can get a 3.5 at a solid number there with some juice. Then maybe UC Santa Barbara. Now we could maybe do the same with Tulane here against North Texas. North Texas beat them earlier in 71-63, so this would be a spot for Tulane to win it. I'm not very confident in Tulane. North Texas is just too good defensively, and this is not quite that conference where you can use that. I mean, you could, but not as confidently. So maybe we'll just talk about one more before we do just get into that free play for tonight. Looking at the late night games, Eastern Washington, Sacramento State, 9-17 teams. Not very good here. Eastern Washington beat Sacramento State 75-67 back in January. Same thing. Now we're here. They're playing again. Eastern Washington, they've looked solid the last 4 games. Sacramento State, yeah, not so much. They're on a little 3-game slip there. But they did lose against Eastern Washington, and now this is their chance to kind of win it back there at plus 2.5 at home. I would lean Sacramento State. Pace-wise, they're just going to want to run that quick pace, more of their style for this game compared to what they did last game when the two met, 75-67, a little bit more on that lower end than they would like to play. I would lean here Sacramento State. I would go money line on this one, plus 130. That's about what we're looking at. That would be the lean for me. For late night, if you do want some late night action, that one tips off at 9 Central. Of course, you've always got your Hawaii game, Cal Poly Hawaii, but we're not going to get into that one. Hawaii laying that 10.5 number, that's too big of a number, and we're just not going to get into that there. So, again, this is what we look for in college basketball. This is where we can try and find some edges. So we're going to go to that 6 o'clock game, tips off in about 40 minutes. That's going to be Presbyterian Longwood. Let's find out what type of number we are getting right now on Presbyterian. Minus 2.5 is currently what we're seeing. Again, I'm going to use ProfitX. That's what I use for all my plays. Everything that I give out on here, it's going to be what the current ProfitX odds are. So Presbyterian, pulling that up right now, minus 2.5 is a minus 107. Not too bad on the juice there. So Presbyterian minus 2.5, and that's a minus 107 line there. That's a free play. That one's locked in. Head over to sportbetextra.com. That's where you're going to get the rest of them. The video will be uploaded there from today's show, as well as the picks. They're going to be there. So once you get your free play, pay to get the rest, or get your free 7-day trial. Same thing. You can get the rest there too. Just head over to sportbetextra.com. get my plays. Good luck tonight. Presbyterian -2.5. Let's go. I will see you guys on Monday.